Hey everyone, welcome. My name is Marilyn Shannon, and I am so happy to invite you here today to the Breaking Free Show. I hope all doing well out there, enjoying this time of year wherever you are. I was just telling Amnon, hello Amnon, by the way.
Hello, good morning, good
Oh,
afternoon.
wherever you are, it's
Yeah.
something. And I was just telling Amnon before that I just posted something on Facebook about the weather. And it's so crazy here because one day it's 60 degrees, we're in North Carolina. One day it's 40, the next day it's 20, then it's 70, and then it's 80. Anyway, it's crazy weather. And I posted this really cool thing on Facebook recently that said, the same thing. And it said then 80 with a chance of snow. So everybody that saw it cracked up laughing. Even friends of mine in Europe said it's the same thing there that it is here in North Carolina. So weather is nutty, nutty, nutty. But anyway, thanks for being here. We're excited to have you. And as always, we have a really great show. And I'm excited. Every week you come, I'm excited you're here. And every week you come, I'm excited that our guests are here. Because I love the conversations that we have with our guests. And I want to remind you all that you are always welcome to call in, chat with us anytime at 919-518-9773. You can take part in our chat. So just put your name in next to the video and you can put a nickname, your real name, whatever, and ask questions, communicate with everyone in the chat. You can also come in on Skype voice, and that is to computers 2K, that's two, the number 2K voice. I'm not just, can you put up that one slide first? So here's my license for you to communicate with us anytime you want. No judgment here. This show is about freedom. And where freedom goes, judgment doesn't go too. So you are free to communicate with us anytime you like about whatever it is that we're talking about. So please feel free to do that. And then also, I have this wonderful listening journal manifesto on my website. Can you just show that really quick? Oh no. Oh, I'm sorry. This will come next, but keep going. There. When you have a chance, please feel free to go there and sign up for it. It is a declaration of independence to communicate with anyone, yourself, the world around you, to figure out life. It's fabulous. It's free. Go to my website and download it and give it away as a gift as well. So let's get to our guests. I'm really excited. So today let me tell you, back up a second. Several months ago, I was talking to some friends and I was talking about the book I'm writing about men and the awakening and how much I like men and all that kind of stuff. And both these friends who don't know each other both suggested that I contact this individual, Ken Mossman. And I didn't know who he was. But both of these individuals told me to do that. And I thought, when somebody tells you, when one person tells you to do something, that's one thing. But when two or three people tell you to do something and they're not connected, you do it real quick. And that is exactly what I did. So let me introduce you to my guest today, Ken Mossman, who is a coach for men, executive men, dads, creative men, all kinds of men. So let's welcome Ken to our show. Hey, Ken.
Hey, Marilyn. Glad to be here.
It's lovely to have you here. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. And
So,
by,
I'm sorry, say that
I
again.
was going to say, by the way, we're having what I refer to as sprinter up here, which is, I don't know whether it's spring or winter, so I'm so with you with the weather thing, by the
Oh,
way.
sprinter.
I like that.
I
I can't
like
think of what
that.
else to call it.
Oh, that's brilliant. Can I copy it?
You can take it.
Oh
Yep.
my God, I'm going to tag you on Facebook with it. That's brilliant because I think that's happening everywhere, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very cool. So, I gave a little bit of, about you, but now you tell everybody about you, what you do, what your work is about.
Great. So I consider myself a walk and talk and stand for what I refer to as the adult integrated masculine, which is something that I think we see way too little of in our culture right now. I think both men and women are a little bit confused about what true masculinity is, about what it looks like, what it sounds like, how it acts, and I have my own ideas, of course, uh, about what true masculinity is, and particularly this thing I refer to as adult or integrated adult masculinity. And I work with, as you mentioned, I'm a coach. There's a lot of different things that I do. I'll focus on the coaching thing right now. I've been coaching for about 16 years now, specializing in working with men for at least 13 of the last 16 years. So that's a wee bit about me.
So you say integrated. What was the word you used?
Integrated adult masculine.
So what does that mean?
So when you look at the lives that we lead, and this is true across the board, we have lots of different roles, and we also have lots of different aspects to ourselves. So I use myself as an example. I am, in terms of my roles, I'm a coach, I'm a business owner, I'm a father, I'm a trainer, I'm a curriculum designer, I'm a guy who's a former athlete, I'm a relatively newly minted musician and a songwriter, I'm a husband. I have all of these different roles. That's just on the role side of the equation. On the personal side of the equation, I am a man. I'm a cisgendered adult man. I am heterosexual. I have an emotional life. I have a spiritual life. I have a physical body that I need to pay attention to and take care of. So there's all of these different aspects to ourselves. And in terms of my inner life, I have a rich inner life. There are different aspects to me. There's parts of me that are and have been and always will be a creative child. There's parts of me that are, have always been, and always will be um, an adolescent out exploring the world. You know, a can-do kind of that adolescent sort of energy. There's parts of me that are adult. There's a whole beautiful, complex matrix of what makes up the me that I am, and I assert that that's true for everybody out there.
I love what you just said. Love what you just said. So I want to ask you, so how important is it to identify each other as masculine or feminine? Does that matter in all of that?
For me it does.
Okay.
For me it does, and I think it's a really individual thing. I mean, there's so much conversation about gender and gender identity right now. And that may be an entirely different conversation to have, but for me and for most of the people that I work with, most of the men that I work with, I think it really is an important thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's I'd say vital.
Why?
Again, I think there are who we are in terms of masculine, feminine. Of course, that's a range of energies. We have access to all of them, but where we identify on that spectrum, I think, is vitally important in terms of who we are as human beings and how we show up in the world. So that's important.
It's interesting because I do a training, a workshop about energy, about people's energies. I call them in different environments. I might call them the fumes we're putting off, or the dynamics, or whatever it looks like. And there's three of them, three main ones. And I have never identified them in a gender specific thing. It's always because we all have all of that. And we just focus we focus more in one than we do in another, but part of life is accessing all of them and knowing when. But I've been doing some talks about specifying which one tends to be culturally where people put men and where they put women. And I did a talk last week at the State Human Resource Managers think tank. And I brought my training, which I've done on multiple levels. It's a template. And I showed where society puts men and where society puts women in the scheme of things. And I could put, anything in there. It doesn't matter. It's just one label. And there was a woman in there who was a millennial. And she was a smart cookie. I really liked her. And she said, in today's world, she wouldn't have identified it as man or woman, feminine as masculine, she would do diversity. So I
Hmm.
kind of tucked it away because in my history, I never said any of those things. I would just, it was more general. And so I was wondering what you thought of that.
It's a great question, and my first thought is, uh, what's at the core of diversity? What's at the core of diversity is are the things that make us different. Whether they be race, religion, culture, gender. Yeah, of course, diversity. And one of the beautiful things about when we're looking at the diversity is everyone gets to come to the table as exactly who they are.
Mhm.
So, I, I, to me, I don't know what's more basic in terms of diversity than who am I? Who are you? Who are we? All
Mhm.
vitally important questions to take a look at.
Well, they are because we are, in some ways, we're all coming into our own, whatever that looks like,
Yes.
our own personal, whatever, into a culture, into a world. We're all finding a strength in identifying ourselves. I always believe that sometimes you have to go from one end of the spectrum to the other to be able to find your balance.
Yep.
And I think in some cases, women are doing that in certain arenas. You know, we in work, for instance, finding our place. Sometimes we come out as a bitch, until we find our right own place. Men in the world are coming into certain arenas and have to come in hard in some places, but we need the words to identify where we are. And so I think it's an interesting conversation because there are so many things you mentioned other than being a father that I could say I am, and it's part of my diversity, right? All of those things. So I think it's just a very interesting conversation. But before we get into it more, I just want to ask you. Somebody's asking on the chat how long you've been playing the guitar.
I have been playing the guitar now. What the word? I've been playing the guitar now in a really serious way for just about. See, I have to do my birthday math. I actually started when I was in earnest, playing in earnest,
Uh huh.
really since I was 49. So we're going on 9 years
Wow.
now.
Okay.
And I'd owned a guitar before that. I first picked it
Okay.
up when I was probably 19, but then I put it away for decades, and
Okay.
really just went in earnest since I was 49.
Okay. Because when I heard you say it, I thought you just picked it up yesterday.
No, 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 no.
Um, so okay, and Barton, a dear friend of both Ken and mine, is on the chat. So we want to say hi to Barton
Hello,
and
Barton.
welcome him to chat with us all he wants because he's a brilliant man
Indeed.
indeed. So tell us a little bit about your background. Like what led you to want to work with men?
Great. What led me to want to work with men was really, well, first of all, I am one. And as I am, I think like many people out there, um, what what fascinates me the most is, okay, what makes me who I am? I'm always looking at who am I, what makes me who I am. And quite frankly, I couldn't get away from looking at the guy in the mirror and from looking at who is it who stands in my shoes. And I really came to working with men through, well, let me go back a little bit farther because I've been a student of human development and human potential for as long as I can remember. And I really started the journey through, believe it or not, the world of skiing. I was a professional skier. I was an instructor. I taught in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I taught at Killington, Vermont. I taught locally up here when I was in undergraduate school, and I was always fascinated. Okay, what are the games that people play in their heads? And I was coming up as a ski instructor during the age of the inner game of tennis and the inner game of skiing. Um, some people will. I know I'm dating myself by mentioning those particular books. Um, but they were all really focused on, okay, really looking within to develop your potential as an athlete. Um, so as an athlete, that's really where the curiosity started, and it just went forth from there. So always interested in human potential and development. And even by the way, I'm trained I have a master's degree in fine arts, so I'm trained as a visual artist. But even that, to me, it was always about looking within, developing myself as a human being as much as developing myself as an artist. And that continues to be true to this day. So of course, looking at those very elemental levels, okay, who am I? What am I about in the world? Led me to initially start to work with fathers, because I discovered coaching as a relatively new dad, really. And always coming back to, okay, who were the people that I really wanted to work with? I kept seeing were people who were much like myself. Now, my son was born when I was 40, so I was a relatively late to the game dad, if you will. And initially, I started working with guys who had their first child, after the age of 35 or so, or were starting second families. And as I worked with them over time, my curiosity just grew. My curiosity just grew. I did some men's work along the way, of course, and the questions that kept coming up about, well, okay, what is it that makes a man a man, and how many different faces does manhood have?
Let me ask you something.
Yeah, so, please.
Yeah, I have to, because it's too good. I don't want it to, because there's going to be so much good that I want to keep interrupting you about. So I'm asking you for permission ahead of time. So just like I had that pink thing put up about everybody has permission, well, I'm taking permission. I've never said that. Huh?
I said rock on.
Rock on, because I've never said that before, but I'm asking for permission up front so I can interrupt.
Please.
Okay, so when you said you were you got more curious and more curious and more curious. So when you started working with the fathers, what did you discover?
I at one point I was thinking about writing a book, and I was also just doing market research, into my niche of fathers, and I interviewed probably 50 or 60 men. 50 or 60 dads. And what I discovered was there was such a rich tapestry. I'll bring the word diversity back into the equation. There was such a rich diversity into every man's approach to fatherhood, every man's philosophy about what it was to be not only a father, but a great father, really, because they were all striving to be great parents, which was a beautiful thing to see, a beautiful thing to hear. And they were also involved in this exploration of not only what is it to be a great father, but what is it to be a good man, show up for their children as a good man, a great man. And that was what I was wildly curious about. And again, I was asking myself those same questions. Still am. Mm-hmm. Still am.
I think it's beautiful when somebody, whether they know or they don't know, but at least their heart is where it is, so they even ask the question.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is why I'm so in love with men today, and why I'm writing my book, is because I'm finding men asking all kinds of questions.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, about life, about how to do this. Well, how do you do this? Well, how do you say this? Well, how do you do all kinds of things, about all kinds of milestones, relationships. And so this is what I'm so curious, and what is so interesting about doing a book about men is that men are really, they're asked, they want to know.
Yeah. There's one other piece that I think was really important in the process, and it was something that linked almost pretty much to a man, a commonality, and that was the that most of them, of course, being Latter-day Dads, so to speak, you know,
Mm-hmm.
coming to it later. Um, Unlike my father's generation, uh, you know, all of them, to a man, had been present at the birth of their child or their children, and each of them pointed to that moment, you know, the being present at the birth as, if not a spiritual epiphany, then certainly an emotional epiphany. And the only exception to that rule, if you will, was were one or two guys who had adopted their children.
Oh, wow. You just gave me a flashback because I know my father, should rest in peace. He's not alive anymore, but he wasn't at my birth,
Hmm.
but I know most men that I know today, they are. That's so interesting.
Hmm.
That's very okay. So there's a lot more to talk about here, but Barton's asking a question. Can you speak to the masculinity as a spiritual pursuit or expression?
Mm. Yeah, I'm sure there are many who can speak to it more eloquently than I. And having said that, um, masculinity is a spiritual pursuit. I think again, you know, and anytime we're really focused on, okay, what is it that makes me uniquely me? You know, what is it that makes me who I am? Um, it's to me, it's an existential question, and therefore it's a spiritual question. And I can speak of my own experience because part of my journey was a vision quest that I went on a number of years ago. And anyone who's been on a vision quest can tell you that they go into nature with one question in mind, and then the real questions end up showing up. And the question that showed up for me had everything to do with who I was as a man. You know, who I was as a man, and you know, who I am as a masculine presence in the world. And again, as an integrated adult masculine presence in the world, because oh my God, do we have all sorts of masculine presences in the world. Um, to me, I don't know if I can separate the spiritual journey. I don't know that I can actually separate those two things. So, Barton, I'm not sure I'm doing a really good job of answering your question because to me, they're one and the same, and they've been one and the same for quite a while when I really look at it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the masculine journey that I'm on is the spiritual journey that I'm on.
Well, can you be on a journey of any kind without it being a spiritual journey? I mean, is a
Um,
journey and spirituality like coexist?
Yeah, well, you know, it's a great question. I think if you identify as a spiritual person, then the answer would be no. On the other hand, um, uh, I think I know that atheist friends of mine would say, "Well, I'm actually on this intellectual journey, or I'm on a human journey." So you know,
Mm-hmm.
they would probably argue against it being a
Right.
spiritual journey, and that's
Mm-hmm.
fine.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. It's just another human
It's
spiritual,
yeah,
just another
it's just
word.
yeah, it's just another word.
But so let's expand that a little bit. So the masculine pursuit or expression now, forgetting
Hmm.
about whether it's a spiritual journey or whatever it is, where do you find, I mean, the masculine world today?
I find the masculine world. So I want to make a distinction because there's a masculine world and then there's the world of men. And I think the masculine world is in great shape, has been and always will be. I think the world of men is in disarray, and in serious and damaging disarray. Been that way for a while. Um, so to me, the question is, I always bring it back. Okay, do we have lots of examples in the world of men of of clear, clean, integrated masculinity. And what I mean by integrated masculinity is uh, men, particularly leaders who own all aspects of themselves, who are familiar with and embrace the complexity of masculinity, if you will, versus being seduced to the simplicity. And the simple equation has guys show up as bullies, or has guys show up as sensitive new age men, but it's kind of there's almost a cartoon aspect to them, and it's something that I think we see way too often in the world of leadership. It shows up in the world of business. Anywhere there's a lot of distorted masculine out there. There's a lot of distorted men caught in distorted feedback loops of masculinity, and that's problematic.
Mm-hmm. So, do you see, even though it's messy, I think I'm wondering, and I see it as a good thing. I see a lot of this mess as the first way of cleaning things up, of men coming out of the closet to express themselves. And I don't, in any, in a lot of ways, I see more men like you, stepping forward and being who you are. I mean, Vision Quest and all, talking about, being at your children's delivery, all of these things, and working with men, more and more men working with men, more and more men expressing this. I see this as a very good thing.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing.
Okay.
I think it's something to pay attention to. The question is, in response to the mess, are people waking up or are they going to sleep? And hopefully, my hope is anyway, and I think this is happening. I think more and more people are waking up and they're beginning to question. Okay, wait a minute. That particular that two-dimensional idea of what a man is, or what men or women are, for that matter, or what leadership is. It's another great place to look. Is not serving. It's not serving me as an individual. It's not serving the community. It's not serving the greater good. And I think there are some I think what, in many ways, the mess that we're seeing now is a reaction to the waking up, and likewise, the waking up is a reaction to the mess. So I'm with you there, Marilyn. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, providing that people are waking up.
Mm-hmm. But you do see people waking up. You see men
certainly
waking up.
Yeah, certainly the people that I see. I mean, as coaches, again, people who are playing in the world of human potential and human development, organizational, individual, across the board, the people who are coming to us, individuals and organizations, are coming to us because they are waking up. That's the good news, and it seems like there's more and more and more every day. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you were talking about men and fathers. I mean, excuse me, men as fathers, men being at their birth. What other issues do you see that men are, being more, other parts of life that men are being more a part of, or are they questioning more?
I think the biggest area that I'm seeing, and this does connect right back to the being present at birth. I mentioned the two epiphanies: spiritual, emotional, usually a combination of the two. They go, and I think those things go hand in hand too. Is I think that the men I'm seeing anyway, and what I'm noticing in the world of men in general, is that there is men are coming to an understanding. It says, okay, this whole emotional thing, I may have missed something. There's probably a lot more to it than I thought there was, and it's great. I have to say, it's great to see that there are men out there who are really curious and interested in discovering and rediscovering. For most, I think it's really a rediscovery, rediscovering their emotions and finding new ways to gain access to their emotions, to gain emotional literacy and fluency over time. It's hugely important. It's in many ways what our fathers, certainly my generation, what our fathers were told that they didn't have time to have access to, and we're told that it wasn't very manly, if I can use that expression.
Definitely. So that's good because I want to go there with you, if that's
Yeah,
okay.
let's. One of my
So,
favorite
okay.
topics.
All right. So so take me to your favorite topic.
Well, what do you want? What do you want
I
to know
want to
about?
know
What do you
about
want to know about
I want to know about
men
you.
and emotional fluency and emotional
Yeah,
literacy?
and I want to start with you.
Yeah.
And going back, I mean, to your childhood, to how it was for you growing up, and what sticks out in your mind as the worst and the best moments that took you forward
The worst and the best moments that took me forward in terms
in
of
your emotional development. I mean,
y-
do I have 10 questions that I can ask in one, but I don't want to confuse you or me or everybody out there because I'm like, well, what about this? Well, what about that? And how did this happen? And all those things. So take us to the beginning. Like, what was it like? So you alluded to the fact that your father, I'm guessing, didn't have time to share his emotion, connect. Is that right?
no,
Oh,
actually,
okay.
I think no, and it wasn't so
Okay.
much the case. It wasn't so
Okay.
much. Now, being a man of his generation, and my folks being parents of, they were of their generation. Um, uh, there was well, let me put it this way, that I'm the third of four siblings, and my sisters, who are at the top and the bottom of the batting order, are both body workers, brilliant body workers. And my brother, who's 2 years older than I, is a glass blower. So you don't come away uh, from a childhood devoid of emotion and end up doing the type of work that all four of us are doing.
Oh,
If any,
yes.
yeah. So,
Wow.
so
Wow.
I think there were times that my folks didn't necessarily know how to handle the emotional landscape that was laid before them, but they always encouraged our creativity and our exploration. They always encouraged our curiosity. Now, I also grew up being told that I was too sensitive. Now, I don't know if that would have been true were I a girl.
Yes, it would
You
have been
know,
true.
what's that?
It would definitely. I was told that all the time.
Okay,
All
so
the time, my
so
father would say, "You're too sensitive," or yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
as a kid, there were a lot of mixed messages, which is go do what you want, explore the world, be wildly curious about it, but don't be too sensitive. Because I was an emotional kid. I'm an emotional man. I have a lot of access to my emotions. I have a huge emotional, uh, a huge emotional range in terms of expressive fluency, and in terms of being able to sit with emotion. It's something that I do very well. It's a strength of mine. As a kid, I don't think it was recognized as a strength. Um, So, we always come back to who we are one way or another if we're awake. We always come back to who we are anyway. So, was it encouraged as a kid? Nah, not so much, even though all those other things were. But as someone who was encouraged to go out and study and learn about art and athletics, um, you know, you can't do that stuff without having access to your. I suppose either way, I could have ended up operating as a machine, but that just wasn't in the cards for me.
Hmm.
So ask me another one of your 10
Oh
questions.
my
I
God!
think.
And there's so many questions on the chat that I want to get to. I want to ask you too. So,
Yeah, please.
I will. So you grew up in a home that supported your creativity, but at the same time was sending mixed messages, which I guess a lot of our families did because my family grew up. My father grew up with having a father that came over to escape the war. Came from
Hmm.
Russia, so he.
We
I
might
don't
have
know.
been neighbors.
Yeah, oh, maybe in Brooklyn. you know,
No, in Eastern Europe.
yeah, Russia. So the messages were, you know, we were all in conflict. We all have those messages. Is this right? Is this right? I feel this, but I don't know. Should I do this? Should I do this? Uncertainty of who we are, right? And if you're,
Absolutely.
you know, and in those days, there was so much uncertainty. There weren't people like you standing up very often, maybe, and saying certain things. But you know, there was Einstein who had a couple of things to say. So yeah, it's very interesting. So I think I've had some judgment, me personally, that most men grew up that were void of emotion, most men grew up without a nurturing parent emotionally, and that's not always the case. There were plenty that did and plenty that still are. So, you know, I'm always thinking that a lot of the parents did not have emotion and you found it somewhere, but you really did have mentors express, you know, helping you express your creativity. Because you have four, you know, there's four of you and you're all doing something creative. So that's really very cool.
Yeah, it is very cool. It is very cool. And we're all extremely close too, which is another. I know that I'm blessed in that regard.
Yeah,
having a tight family.
Yeah, and so and you encouraged each other, which was an added plus. I'm assuming.
I think we did, and we still do. You know, we did and we still do encourage one another. And my dad is still living, and I know that he's very proud of everything that all four of us have created and who we've become. So
that's wonderful. So for you, it was kind of natural. You are who you already are. Did you have a difficult time anywhere in your maturing life to express yourself, or that's always been who you are and you've always been an expressive man?
I've always been expressive. You know, as a teen and as a young man, I always pursued the things that I really wanted to pursue. Having said that, you know, I look back now and can see, I was the quintessential angst-ridden artist, and you know, oh my God, if I only knew then what I knew now. But as you said, hindsight is 20/20. So yeah, I mean, there was a fair amount of rough sailing in terms of making peace. I think, you know, having grown up with parents of my folks' generation that did send those mixed messages. You know, of course, there was a journey that I think we all have to take, in terms of finding, all right, you know, where is, you know, how does one make the journey from too sensitive and really fighting that? Because as a child, hearing that, oh, you're too sensitive, the message, of course, is, you know, I'm too sensitive. There's something wrong with me. But to make that transition into adulthood, that says, no, actually, those sensitivities are actually what make me the powerful presence that I am. Mm-hmm. You know, that I hear over and over again in the front. And I often receive when I'm teaching classes, the feedback that I often receive from participants is, you know, oh my goodness, you're so strong and so sensitive at the same time. You know, you're that balance of masculine and feminine, again, energies. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's like, ooh, you know, job well done. Yeah.
Yes. That's perfect. That's the way how we want it to be, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because I know my feminine energy and I know my masculine energy, and I think that's an interesting question. To ask other people out there. Do you know your feminine energy? Do you know your masculine energy?
It's a great question to ask and to keep looking at, because to me, again, this is the integrated piece.
Sure.
This is the adult integrated
piece. Well, we're only
piece.
talking about We're only talking about going forward here, right? We've left that other stuff behind.
If only, to be
Yeah.
able to hold both of those at the same time and to recognize that, okay, every human being, the birthright of every human being is this natural state of creativity,
Mm-hmm.
natural state of creativity. And where does creativity express itself? Well, it finds itself in this, and you mentioned the mess that's happening now. Of course, there's a creative tension in that mess. There's a creative tension between holding feminine energy in one hand and masculine energy in the other hand. There's a creative tension between holding authority and flexibility at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I know these are big. These are not simple concepts that we're mucking about with here, but just to point them out, it's like beautiful creative tension in all of that.
Gifts.
Gifts. Yep, you bet.
Gifts.
Yep.
And so I would say for everybody, because I have some questions that I want to ask you next, but I do want to say for everybody that's listening, man, woman, whoever, genderless, doesn't matter. Holding those gifts, whatever those gifts are, however you want to identify them. I don't like to categorize things in a box, but it is important for me to put some label on it, then take the label away if I want. Once I get once I get clearer and clearer, I can take it away. But it is in honoring my whole self, my holistic whole self, in identifying myself in these parts, to acknowledge them, to be grateful for them, to understand them, to like myself through them. I would suggest the same for everyone, to take a look, to hold them in a beautiful way. And then if you want to get rid of the label, do so, because you don't have to think about it. But it is good in a snap to take a look, because now with what we're talking about, I have not thought about that before, in holding my masculinity and my feminine. What does it look like? And to then honor them and move forward. I would suggest that people do that. Let me ask you some questions that are here. So to realize their goals, what do men want and need from the women in their lives?
I'm thinking here. I want to bring Brene Brown. I want to bring Brene Brown.
Go right ahead. Everybody else does.
Yeah, let's bring Brene Brown into the conversation.
Everybody does.
She did a beautiful job in Daring Greatly of talking about the double standard that many women hold, and this is key. So if you want a man to be able to access his emotions, oh my God, don't belittle him when he does.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't, I want to say you can't have it both ways, but if you don't let yourself have it both ways, you can't have it at all. And if you want a man who's going to be able to cry with you, when don't give him a hard time when he cries.
Right.
If you want a man who's going to embrace all of who he is, chances are he's going to go off the rails every now and then. And when I say go off the rails, it's interesting. I'm even noticing my own language around this, because again, human birthright, full range of emotions, from the depths of grief on one end of the spectrum to absolute joy and grief, hopelessness on one side, joy, love on the other side of the equation, and everything in between. That's part of our birthright, and the expression of those emotions is part of our birthright. And I think this isn't just about women supporting men, but it was the question that was asked, and that is, as a woman, learn to be with all of those emotions just as much, and allow the man in your life to be with all of those emotions, because the only way through them is through them. And if you sidestep them, they're going to come out sideways.
Right. And I would also, patience.
Patience.
Patience is, I mean, patience, because when you start to speak a new language, or you live in a foreign country, you got to have patience because you don't know where everything is. The directions are a caca. I mean, I would just say, I would add to everything that Ken said, and I love, and I'm sitting here saying, I'm just going to tell Ken I love him. But I do. I love how he speaks and I love what he's representing. And I would just add to this next piece, patience. Have patience
Patience.
for the men in your life, and men have patience for the women in your life,
Yeah.
because we're all navigating new awakening. And isn't that a lovely thing? And
Mhm.
so, just as a child gets up and, falls, a baby falls when they're learning to walk, it's exactly the same thing. You don't yell at a baby. We're great, we're happy, we clap every time they do it, because each time they do it, they take another step. Let's do
Right.
that for each other as well. Um, Here's some more questions for you. I'm also sitting here and I'm liking these questions, but I have more to it. I'm thinking, nope, got to ask these questions. So Bonnie is saying she's very encouraged to hear men are waking up. How does Ken coach men who seek his counsel to develop, embrace, integrate the aspects of emotion, spirituality, and femininity into their being? How do you coach them?
Well, my wise guy answer is very well. Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
Here's the patience. You mentioned patience, Marilyn, and I'm gonna. That's part of the key. First of all, there needs to be a willingness on the part of the guys that I'm working with, of the men that I'm individual men that I'm working with, to begin to explore emotions. So we wade in slowly, depending, and this varies from man to man, but usually we're wading in slowly because the ability to feel, the ability to feel, and this is not just in terms of emotion, but the ability to feel has in many cases been socialized out of us as men, and we're not terribly good at feeling, at being aware of our bodies. We're not terribly good at being aware of what we're thinking in a given moment. We're not terribly good at being aware of what's the emotion present. What's the emotion that's present. So so we wade in, gently and slowly, and oftentimes it begins with just an awareness of, okay, what am I thinking right now? Or what am I feeling right now physically, quite literally? What are the physical sensations that I'm experiencing? Gosh, I notice I'm in a conflict. What is the experience of being in conflict like? What is the experience of not being in conflict like? So really, it might sound very elemental, and at some level it is, and at the same time, there's a lot of depth to it.
Mhm.
So everything in my book and in my coaching, everything starts with awareness. Everything starts with awareness. So that's where we begin.
Mhm. And here's another question, and I think we've touched upon this, but I think if you, this is a good place to go again. Why do men still work so hard to hide their emotions?
Because it's what we've been taught. It's what we've been taught. And there is, you can't, patience again. That's
Yeah.
such a good word. Patience again. If you've grown up hearing that, big boys don't cry, if you've grown up hearing that it's better to be stoic than expressive, um, if the culture supports those distorted viewpoints, and many cultures do, organizational cultures, uh, uh, um, organizational cultures support the, leave your emotions at the door. It's all business here. As far as I'm concerned, business business is all about emotion, unless it's how do I want to put this? why are people in business? Well, they're in business. There's the money aspect of things, but boy, if you take away the logic and a lot of the rationales, all of a sudden things get very emotional. So there's always emotional underpinnings to why are you in business? Well, there's something. I have a dream. I have a vision. I have something I'm wanting to bring to the marketplace. There's emotion behind all of that. Ask me the question again, because I just went off on a tangent.
No,
It was
that's
a really
okay.
good question.
Well, it was about why, how come men are still in conflict about sharing their emotion. But I just want to add to something you just said. We're all, women too, are told or suggested or shown to leave the emotion somewhere else.
At the door.
And at the door, not to bring it in. So we're all being asked the same thing. And again, just like Ken said, and I won't summarize it because it was perfect. I don't need to, and I don't want to take the time. But I suggest that everybody go back and listen to the show again, and I suggest that you share it with everybody in your life, because there are jewels during the show that you will want to listen to again and reflect upon. So men. The question basically was, why are men still, in conflict over sharing their emotion?
Yeah, there's another piece to it, and that is, and this is part of the cultural lie, if you will, that there is a payoff for leaving the feelings behind. What's the carrot that's being waved in front of one's face that says, oh, okay, if you just marginalize that part of you, there's a rich payoff at the end of the road. And I think, first of all, that's nonsense. That's nonsense. There may be some sort of a payoff, but when you really look at the payoff in fact is a trade-off. Okay, I've traded and this is what I hear from my clients over and over again. Because they traded off the feelings, they traded off the emotions, they traded off their dreams in many ways, to walk a straight and narrow path. And they're 20, 30, 40, 50 years down that path, realizing something's just not right here. This isn't the payoff that I was told I would receive. Or I've got the money in the bank, and I've got the house and the car and the wife and the kids and the dog, 2.3 children and a dog and a cat. But where's the satisfaction? Where's the fulfillment in all this? Is it a payoff? Is it a trade-off?
Yeah, that's a good phrase to coin. So tell us, when you say it's the trade-off, what's the best part about men, and again, anybody, but we're specifically asking you about men. What is the best part about men being able to express themselves?
In the long run?
Yeah, specifically, like just real specific, like bring tears to my eyes.
The first thing that comes to my mind, Marilyn, is peace. Peace. I think, let me put it this way. Happy, fulfilled people don't make for good reality TV. And thank God for that. Because there's not, there's not a whole lot of drama in the world of the fulfilled human being. There is, however, an awful lot of fulfillment, an awful lot of satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
And that, to me, is what leads to peace. People who are satisfied with who they are and what they do, what they're creating. I'm not sure if that brings tears to your eyes, but...
Yeah. No, when you said peace, for a man or anybody, but again, we're talking about men because I'm really interested in the awakening of men. For men to be able to have peace, to really like themselves, to really, really like themselves. I mean, that's a big deal.
It's a huge deal.
It's a huge deal. I don't know if a lot of men take the time to, to have liked themselves. Some men are, are doing the machine thing and, are doing the father thing, but to really connect with who they are is so important.
And I want to up the ante. I mean, it's one thing to like yourself, but to me, the and to that is, and it's a whole nother level to look in the mirror and love yourself.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that's the game I'm interested in.
Yes. You can look in the mirror and love yourself, right?
I would be lying if I said that it was 100% done deal, set it and forget it, been there, done that, bought the T-shirt, I'm good. Yeah, I'd be lying. I'd be lying, and I'm not going to do that with you. I'm not going to do it with myself. It's a constant. I'm not going to use the word constant battle. I will say this: it's a practice. It's a discipline.
Mm. Well, I think that is again for all of us. I can look in the mirror on a lot of days and say, "Yes, Marilyn, I love you." Right? I love what you just did. I love how you just sounded. I love what you created. I love what you're up to. I love blah, blah, blah. And I know you are doing the same thing. It may not be something I look at myself, some days I'm like, ugh, but you do it, I'm sure. And I mean, for men to be able to do that, I'm going to ask my husband when I call him later after the show. I'm going to say, do you look in the mirror sometimes and say to yourself, do you that I love him? I love me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really interesting.
And to me, the practice, the discipline is, if we add the word unconditionally,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll give you an example, because this is real for me. I know
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of the reasons that coaching continues to be so alive for me is because my clients are always bringing me my own stuff. I love them for
Yeah,
that.
I know.
I love them for that. And I have a few clients who are dealing with body image um, issues, and I have some old injuries. Having played the ski game at the level I played it, I have some old injuries, and found out very recently in work that I'm doing with my own coach, by the way, is that I didn't, unbeknownst to me, I was at war with myself. And as I read recently, if you go to war with yourself, you can't win. Um, so that's part of the work that I'm doing on myself right now. It's like, okay, can I look myself in the mirror, and with all of my old injuries, can I love this body that I'm carrying around? That carries me around. Like, flip around. Can I continue to love this body, this aging body that's carrying me around? And
Yeah.
so far, once I realized what was going on there, again, awareness. Once I realized what was going on there, the answer is a resounding, oh my goodness, the adventures that this body has taken me on. Yes, 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 yes. Off the charts. Changed my relationship with so many things. So
Right.
just a short story there. I know we're getting close to time.
Yeah, we are. But the thing is we only know what we know. And
Yeah.
so when we are aware and it comes to our awareness, then we know. So, you know, uh, it's so interesting because when I did a story, I interviewed this gentleman that I know a couple of weeks ago who faced being anorexic. Now, I've never heard of a man acknowledge that he had that. I've seen my, people, care about what they eat and whatever, but I've never heard of a man acknowledge that, and I'm sure there are plenty. And now you're talking about something else, and it, that that's part, and I agree with you, Ken. That's part of being a coach or anybody out here that's doing anything similar, whatever. Speaking, we are our material,
Yeah.
right?
The good news, bad news.
Yes, and because we're all living. I mean, I'm a living, breathing entity. I'm going through things. My knees hurt. My this hurts. My that hurts. And my journey is my material.
Mm-hmm.
And we all talk about it, and we're living examples of things that are working, things that aren't working, and then they work again, then they don't, and then we try, and then whatever. But that's part of the journey, and that's part of being awake. Being awake does not mean that I'm just sitting here like this, you know?
Right. Yep.
So,
Yeah.
oh, I could go on and on with you, but we don't only have a minute or two left, and I want you to tell everyone who's listening where they will find you, what they will find, if they want to work with you, or any of those juicy things.
Okay. Thank you. The best way to find me is through my website, which is Cirrus, Cirrus, as in the cloud, cirruscoaching.com. How much information do you want me to
As
give?
much as you want to share, you go right ahead.
I'll give you my email address is ken@cirruscoaching.com. Again, Cirrus is in the cloud, CIRRUSCOACHING.com. And my office phone, 518-580-0550. That's another way to get in touch with me. Oftentimes I return phone messages faster than email messages because, like everyone else, oh my goodness, we all get way too many of those. Those are probably the best ways to get in touch with me. Yeah.
Perfect. And we're gonna have this show is gonna be available to you. If you come back to this website, you'll see it back to the show. You see it on demand. You can watch it from there. You can watch it on YouTube, whatever is open to you. But please do share it. These conversations that we have here are really pertinent to our lives. So, share it with people you know. And can you come to that slide in just one afternoon? So for all of you out there that are listening, I've mentioned it several times, I am writing a book about men. Several men are writing their personal stories, are being interviewed for the book. So please feel free, if you are a man, if you know of a man, young boys, older gentlemen, whoever they are, who are willing to express themselves, express their journey. We'd love to share the journey of men so that, we're all, the more we share all these stories, the more liberated we will all be. And the name of the book is In Just One Afternoon, because that's all it takes for us to understand each other, really. And please feel free to email me with any questions, comments, anything, Marilyn@marilynshannon.com. And with that, I want to thank Ken so much. You are a great guest.
Oh, thanks, Marilyn. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
It's a delight.
Oh my God, you were terrific. And thank you so much. And I want to thank Noah and Barton and Megan for referring us together, connecting us. I love that. And, this world is meant for connection. And I believe that the more we do that, the healthier we'll all be. So please feel free to connect with me anytime. And Ken, we hope you'll come back and come again to the show.
Thanks. I look forward to it.
Yeah, good. I'd love you to, because you're so easy to talk to, and these are topics that I love talking about. So thanks so much for being here. Everyone out there, thank you so much for being here with us today. And we will see you all next week, and have a wonderful week. Bye.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, My Life, My Will with Gisela DiCarlo, The Tanya Love Show, Help Then with Debbie Bruck, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Triangle Be Well with Howard Jacobson, Lunch and Learn with Rabbi Yisrael Cutler, Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members, Parent Dome with Ryan Miller, Current Affairs with Amnon Nissan. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section on nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Atomos.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.